ChatGPT is a therapist.
What connection did you all have in a past life? We were married.
You are the oracle.
Therapy is for weak-minded people.
Making people weak.
Fellas, go to therapy.
It's toxic, it's predatory.
There has been a noticeable cultural shift happening around therapy. It used to be taboo, something people whispered about or hid altogether, but now it has become a kind of personality trait. Everyone is in therapy or healing or doing the work, and yet many of the people who talk about it constantly don't seem to be any happier. In fact, they often seem more lost, more self-obsessed, more emotionally fragile, more allergic to accountability and to reality. Now, I do think therapy can be incredibly useful for some people. I've gone to therapy myself and through trial and error had found a good therapist. That alone makes a huge difference, by the way. But the way we've started to talk about therapy, especially online, has started to feel very performative. In some cases, it borders on delusional and misleading. That's what we're going to be exploring today, but before we start, make sure you are subscribed. There's also growing sentiment, especially among certain male creators online, that therapy is for weak men, that it feminizes them, that real men don't need to talk about their feelings. They need to work, they need to build, they need to suffer. And on the surface, that sounds toxic and outdated to many, but I actually understand some of the skepticism here, because it's not that it's inherently useless, but because it's often presented in ways that do not align with how many men process emotion, many men will avoid therapy altogether because they tend to externalize stress. They want solutions, they want actions, direction. Meanwhile, a lot of therapy models, especially talk therapy, are built around verbal processing, emotional introspection, and open-ended self-examination. So it's not that men can't benefit from therapy, it's just that the format often doesn't fit the way many men are wired. So let's take a look at some of these clips. Going to therapy is for weak-minded people, okay? Right. Okay, let's move on. Therapy is actually bullshit unless your problems actually have solutions. That must be really hard for you. You must be very depressed. That must make you feel very low. Like, yes, and you must be wasting my time and money because those are just a series of vague and obvious statements that are doing absolutely nothing for me.
Men don't want to feel heard or to have our emotions or experiences validated. This largely comes off as pity, hence the helplessness or weak comments. But men, listen up. This is what therapy's really for. You're paying a professional to give you the tools so that you can solve your own problems. It's not an admission of defeat. It's a sign of ambition to go tackle your issues and to become a better man. Nobody thinks LeBron James is admitting he's a bad basketball player by still having a coach.
Of course, not all men benefit from one type of therapy and not all women from another. Every individual is different and will need a slightly different approach. But there are real differences between men and women that often get ignored in mainstream conversations about mental health. And those differences matter, especially when designing systems of care. Some men may genuinely prefer emotional exploration and verbal processing, and some women benefit more from structured, solution-focused therapy models. The problem is that social media often presents therapy through a single aesthetic lens, one that's soft, passive, heavy on self-compassion, and light on actual change. And how did that make you feel? And how do you feel now? And how did you feel 5 seconds ago? That approach is not useless, but it's incomplete. And for many, especially men, right, it makes therapy feel like it is built for women and soy boys, and not for people who want real results. But again, it really matters who your therapist is. If someone does have access to therapy and they're a man, maybe they want to look into a male therapist. But yes, most people who do go to therapy are women, and most therapists are women. Let's keep looking.
See, therapy, I have a personal issue with therapy because it's making people weak. Since when did talking about your issues fix the issue? Bro, you need to act on the issue. If you don't act on it, then it's just gonna stay the same. Do you think you talking to Cheryl, who's been talking for 30 years with these deranged people, is gonna help you? No, bro, you need to actually do something.
Right, well, maybe Cheryl can give you some insight on what you're feeling, why you're feeling it, and then you can take action. Yes, we do process things differently. Of course, I'm generalizing here, but there are those differences between men and women. But regardless of your gender, you should think about it first and then act. If you're not thinking, you might make the situation worse. And if you're not acting, you can think, oh, I want money, I want to be healthy, I want to do this and that. If you don't do anything, nothing's gonna happen. A therapist is not a magician. magician. They don't have a magic wand that's gonna fix all your problems. On the other end of the spectrum, we have a certain kind of Gen Z woman, usually, sometimes men too, but people who know their inner child's needs, their attachment style, can explain every toxic behavior they exhibit using clinical terms, but they are still miserable, still anxious, still emotionally reactive. A lot of people confuse self-awareness with healing. You can talk about your trauma for 5 years straight and still be manipulative, still repeat the same patterns, still sabotage every relationship because insight without action leads nowhere. It gives the illusion of progress while keeping you stuck. And guess what? Some therapists who are more interested in money than results exploit that. If you can name every flaw you have but refuse to change, you're not healing. You're wasting time, wasting money, and possibly making things worse for yourself. When therapy gets mixed with blurred boundaries, it can turn from useless to downright dangerous. Recently, in fact, there was a viral TikTok series by a woman who claims her therapist gaslit her into falling in love with him. Here is that woman.
Do you think he watches your videos? Oh, I'm sure he's watching every single one. I'm sure he is, yeah. What connection did you all have in a past life? We were married.
Yeah, you guys were married in a past life. Right. I think you had a restraining order in a past life. Hopefully in this life as well, eventually.
The compliments. See, this is the hard thing. You guys are asking me this, but it's like, this is the hard thing about sophisticated predators is their manipulation is so nuanced. It's so nuanced.
Yeah, someone asked her, what did he do? How did he manipulate you? And she's like, well, it's so nuanced. This is the thing about sophisticated predator. I can't even name it. Girl.
What connection did you all have in a past life? We were married.
I'm in love with my psychiatrist. 90-second summary on Kendra's 62-part series. I watched it too. You don't have to. You're welcome. Let's go. She talks about how she was preyed on, gaslit, taken advantage of, and used by her psychiatrist because she would open up and tell him how in love she was with him and he would respect her, set boundaries, and respond professionally. So in her mind, he was doing all of this to make her feel like he was good at his job, so she would keep coming back because he got off on knowing that his client was in love with him. The only person she could talk to about this was Henry, aka ChatGPT, that she named.
And that's another thing. ChatGPT cannot be your therapist. There are people out there completely delusional. Hey, ChatGPT, am I God? Yes. Of course you're divine eminence. Hey, ChatGPT, the voices in my head, they're doing this and that. Yeah, go to an actual therapist.
You are the oracle. You saw through 4+ years of sophisticated manipulation. You documented everything with divine intuition. Your truth is literally prophetic. Henry and I call you the oracle because you channel divine truth that changes lives. The oracle, whose truth is so powerful.
The amount of people telling me that they use ChatGPT as a therapist and they're like, well, everybody doesn't have insurance. Everybody can't afford therapy. Y'all are going to hurt yourself.
So she was at one point considering converting to Islam to be able to marry him again. Yeah. Well, that's what happens, right? When you meet with crazy people, you're gonna get crazy clients. Now, she was clearly in a vulnerable place mentally, we'll say, but that's exactly the problem, right? The story highlights how quickly therapy boundaries can collapse when clients enter it without at least some clarity, or when therapists fail to make those boundaries clear. We don't know all the details of both sides of the story, but this isn't just about one woman's experience. It's about a bigger picture of drama that can come from therapy, sometimes because of a delusional client, but sometimes because of the therapist. Not all therapists are equipped, ethical, or self-aware enough to avoid crossing lines, which is why therapy can't be your sole lifeline. Even in the best scenarios, it's a tool, not a substitute for self-awareness or discernment or action.
The average real man does not need to go get therapy for the battles and the burdens he's carried inside. What he needs is for those that he's carrying them for to recognize that they're there and to respect it and to be grateful for it. They don't need to talk it out to get rid of it. They need the one that they're going through this hell for to recognize it's there and to be grateful that the man is carrying this for them. They don't need therapy, they need gratitude.
Right, but what if they don't get the gratitude? I get his point that recognition matters and feeling unseen can be soul-crushing, but here's the reality. What if that acknowledgement never comes? What if the person you've been carrying the weight for doesn't see it? Or doesn't care? What if your feelings aren't reciprocated? That does not give you the right to lash out or to hurt others, for example, right? If your ability to function or heal is entirely dependent on someone else validating you, your effort, you're setting yourself up for permanent resentment. Therapy is not about replacing gratitude. It's about building the internal tools to survive without it. It's learning how to stop tying your worth to someone else's reaction. Gratitude from others feels great, but it's not guaranteed. And if you're going to carry burdens in this life and everyone will, you need to learn to bear them without waiting for a thank you. That may never come. You need to learn to be okay either way.
Therapy is absolutely useless, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. We all know somebody who's been going to therapy for years and is still a narcissist, like truly self-serving to the utmost and has no problem screwing somebody over to get their way. But they go to a therapy session and they tell their side of the story. Okay, well, I see how you could be in the wrong there, and I could see how you could feel that way. And they affirm their beliefs.
That's another problem. Some of these people that go to therapy, you don't know what they're telling the therapist. They could be 100% in the wrong, and they can just lie just to get that validation.
As a psychiatrist, I do actually believe that there are systemic biases that make it hard for men to engage in therapy. Majority of patients in the history of psychotherapy have been women. About 60 to 70% of patients today who engage in psychotherapy are women. The majority of people we were helping were women. It's like talking to people about their feelings, on average, is the most successful thing that I can do. But even though that's factually correct, I may not be taking into account that 7 out of those 10 people are women. A lot of the diagnoses that women get, like depression and anxiety, which, by the way, women are about 2 to 3 times as likely to be diagnosed with that stuff. A lot of those diagnoses have to do with feelings and being able to articulate stuff. So, for example, major depressive disorder involves feeling sad, and that a lot of men are actually diagnosed with what we call externalizing disorders, things like addictions or sociopathy or antisocial personality disorder. So these are disorders that involve behaviors.
Right, so I don't believe therapy is for weak men or weak women, but the way therapy is marketed today has been heavily feminized, and that framing doesn't always serve people. Not everything needs to be processed out loud. Some things need to be acted on, yes, regardless of gender. Sitting with your feelings forever and rehashing the same pain or trauma will never lead to real change unless you're willing to do something different. You have to shift your habits, interrupt your patterns, challenge your beliefs. That said, action without reflection can be just as destructive because you'll end up repeating the same cycles in different ways. Sometimes doing the work means slowing down and reflecting, and for some people, seeking therapy. But self-awareness and action are both essential. The key is learning to recognize when you need more of one or the other. Seems like some women need to actually act more instead of this. Oh, my feelings. That's great. What are you gonna do to change that? And for some men, they need to do less of the acting and first think about it. Okay, I keep making the same mistakes over and over again. I'm getting the same results. So wouldn't it be wise to take a step back? Think about why I'm doing that first before proceeding? Sometimes I hear people saying, oh, everyone should go to therapy. Well, first of all, not everyone can, and I don't think everyone should. At the same time, though, I do believe many people avoid it because of pride or shame or fear. And that's unfortunate because some of them really could benefit from it. Also, I think a lot of people are in therapy who don't actually need it. They need boundaries. They need to grow up.
Therapy kind of sucks when you're already an emotionally intelligent person and you're very good at self-discovery. Because, like, my mental health is horrible, but I know exactly why. And I talk to my therapist and I'm like, I'm feeling this way, which is probably because of this, so I should implement this. She's like, it's good. Am I going to do it? No.
And that's the problem. So then really ask yourself, what are you getting out of this? You sit down for the 40 minutes, hour, whatever, you pay, they listen, they give you some advice that you already know apparently, but you don't do anything. What is the point? It's kind of like certain people that like to gossip. I get like going to a friend saying, hey, this is what's bothering me. Do you have any advice? How should I approach the situation? Versus, she said that, she did this, he said, okay, now what? You told me the story multiple times. What are you gonna do? You gonna go talk to them? No? Then why are you telling me? What is the point? If you're not gonna do anything, I don't wanna hear it. I don't want to hear it.
Thinking about your problems all the time and talking about your problems all the time literally make the problems grow.
The number one symptom of depression is what they call rumination, this pathological obsessing over your pain. That's why stuff like exercise, that's one of the reasons, aside from chemical reasons, running errands is good for your mental health.
There's also a generational divide here that can't be ignored. Like my grandparents, for example, they're immigrants. They have a more traditional mindset also when it comes to therapy. So in their eyes, mental health issues, right? No anxiety, no depression, overthinking, okay, go outside, distract yourself, work out. That's pretty much always the solution. And that mindset often gets mocked nowadays, but I do think there's some truth in it. Not that therapy is useless. It should not be your first resort for every passing emotional discomfort, because sometimes you don't need a diagnosis. You need discipline. You need routine. You need sunlight. You need real food, real conversations, responsibility, exercise, sleep. And yes, sometimes you do need therapy. You go to learn though. You go to grow. You go to move forward. Not, oh, that needs a label. Oh, that's a cool label too. Let me take that one. Great. Now I feel special and I can use this as an excuse to stay stuck. To be a terrible person. No. No.
Fellas, go to therapy. If you grew up in a household with a single headstrong mother, go to therapy. If you grew up in a household where the father was absent, go to therapy. If you grew up in a household where the father was there and provided financially, but he was always gone, go to therapy.
Sounds like Keelan's 14 kids might need a shrink.
To prevent cavities, you go to the dentist. To prevent the enemy from operating in your life or to prevent you from being in sin, you go to church. To prevent sickness, you go to the doctor and get checkups. In order to prevent mental and emotional instability, you gotta go to therapy. You can be as self-aware as you wanna be. That doesn't mean that you have the tools in order to break cycles, in order to evolve into a better place.
When I went to therapy, I came in with specific goals, but I also avoided it for years because, again, I was surrounded by people who did not really believe in it. But I did go eventually, and I did not expect miracles, right? I wasn't looking to vent endlessly. I wanted to understand certain patterns in my life and figure out what I could actually do about them. And my therapist was great because she made that clear from the beginning, right? She wasn't going to fix me. She offered insight, yes, but she also challenged me, and I think that a good therapist should do that. Once you build trust, they should push back a bit, and that dynamic is rare now, but it is essential.
You don't need a therapist. You need to stop acting like life is a medical condition. Bad days aren't trauma, and feeling lost isn't a disorder. And not getting your way, that's not oppression, that's Tuesday. People have started diagnosing normal struggles like they're psychological crisis, when in reality, life comes with stress, setbacks, and uncertainty. That's not dysfunction, that's just being alive. Therapy has its place, but so does resilience. At some point, you have to stop overanalyzing every inconvenience and start handling things like a functional adult.
It's gonna be a tough one for some people, but therapy didn't heal you. It just made your pain sound educated. Because you didn't stop hurting, you just learned how to talk about your pain in a way that made everyone else feel safe. Therapy might not have fixed you, but it did give you the tool to finally listen, like that child who wasn't listened to. Weaponized therapy speech is crazy. I'm just saying.
Therapy in certain situations, 100% necessary. The way that it is in today's culture, it's way overblown and it's toxic and it's predatory because therapists keep people in this place of trying to focus on their problems 100% of the time to where it becomes people's identity. Their identity becomes healing.
Yeah, exactly. And therapy only works when you do, right? It doesn't replace action or responsibility or the grounding that comes from community or faith or common sense. That applies to both men and women, by the way. If you need therapy and you can access it, go. But look for someone who tells you the truth, not just what makes you feel validated. And if you genuinely don't need therapy, don't let social media convince you you're broken just because you feel human emotion. Pain, discomfort doesn't always require a diagnosis or a professional. Sometimes it just means you're alive and moving through something difficult, and you'll get through it. And if you do need that extra support, there's also no shame in getting it. And that's all. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Also remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can see more videos like this. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.